Listen closely. Because what I'm about to tell you changes everything you think you know about the Hells Angels. March 17, 1948. Fontana, California. A group of World War II veterans gathered in a dusty bar, their leather jackets already stained with motor oil and whiskey. They called themselves the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. But here's what nobody tells you. They weren't just a motorcycle club. They were something else entirely. The founders, Otto Friedli, Ralph "Sonny" Barger would later become the face, created more than a gang. They engineered a subculture. A parallel society operating under its own laws, its own codes, its own brutal justice system. By the 1960s, they had chapters in every major American city. By the 1970s, they'd gone international. Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. A crimson and white empire spanning continents. But here's where it gets weird. In 2019, a federal investigator named Marcus Chen discovered something in the archives. Something that didn't make sense. Financial records that showed money flowing in patterns that defied every known model of organized crime. Shell corporations registered in countries the Hells Angels supposedly had no presence in. Bank accounts opened and closed in synchronized rhythm across multiple continents. Marcus spent 6 months following the paper trail. What he found kept him awake for 72 hours straight. The Hells Angels weren't just a criminal organization. They were the front for something much larger. Something that had been operating in plain sight for over 70 years. And when Marcus tried to report his findings, he disappeared. Not quit his job and moved away, disappeared. Vanished. His apartment cleaned out. His files erased. His entire digital footprint scrubbed from existence within 48 hours. But before he vanished, Marcus sent an encrypted file to his sister. 23 pages of evidence that would crack this case wide open. This is that story. Detective Sarah Rodriguez didn't believe in conspiracy theories. 20 years with the Oakland PD had taught her that most mysteries had boring explanations. Drug deals gone wrong. Domestic disputes that escalated. Gang violence over territory. But Marcus Chen's case bothered her. She'd worked with Marcus on a trafficking investigation 2 years prior. He was methodical, careful, the kind of agent who triple-checked sources and never jumped to conclusions. He wasn't the type to just disappear. When his sister, Amy Chen, walked into Sarah's office with a USB drive, something clicked. "He sent this to me 3 days before he vanished," Amy said, her hands shaking. "I've been too scared to look at it. But you knew him. You'll know if this is real or if he'd lost it." Sarah plugged in the drive. 23 pages of financial records, surveillance photos, and handwritten notes appeared on her screen. The first page was a map of the United States with red dots marking every Hells Angels chapter. Nothing unusual. But the second page showed something else. Blue dots representing offshore accounts, all opened within a 3-month period in 2018. 17 accounts. 17 different countries. All containing exactly $847,000. Why that specific amount? Sarah's mind raced. She scrolled further. Marcus had highlighted transactions showing money being moved in perfect synchronization. When one account received a deposit, 5 others would transfer the same amount out within hours. Like a heartbeat. A rhythmic pulse of money flowing through a global network. But it wasn't the money that made Sarah's blood run cold. It was the names on the account registrations. Real estate companies. Investment firms. Charitable foundations. All legitimate businesses. All with boards of directors that included judges, politicians, police chiefs, and corporate executives. And buried in the footnotes of each registration? A single clause granting consulting rights to holding companies registered in the Cayman Islands. Marcus had traced those companies back to known Hells Angels associates. He thought they'd infiltrated everything, Amy whispered. Government. Law enforcement. The financial system. Sarah closed the laptop. "I need to verify this independently. If your brother was right. If he was right, we're all in danger." Sarah looked at Amy. You need to leave Oakland. Tonight. Don't tell me where you're going. Delete this conversation from your memory. I'll contact you when it's safe. After Amy left, Sarah sat in the dark office for an hour, staring at the closed laptop. Every instinct told her to hand this to the FBI. Follow protocol. Let the federal agencies handle it. But Marcus had been a federal agent. And now he was gone. She opened the laptop again and began reading. By dawn, she understood why Marcus had disappeared. And she knew she was next. The Hells Angels Oakland chapter is Ground Zero. The birthplace of the modern club's power structure. The place where Sonny Barger transformed a loose collection of bikers into a sophisticated criminal enterprise. Sarah had been watching the Oakland clubhouse for 3 days. Sitting in her unmarked car, camera with a telephoto lens, logging every person who came and went. Bikers, obviously. But also lawyers in expensive suits. City contractors. Even a deputy district attorney she recognized. On the 4th day, something happened that changed everything. A black Lincoln Town car pulled up. Diplomatic plates. 2 men in dark suits emerged, looking distinctly uncomfortable in the industrial neighborhood. They entered the clubhouse. 15 minutes later, they left. Sarah zoomed in on the photo she'd captured. Her hands trembled as she recognized one of the faces. Senator Richard Malone, chair of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security. What was a sitting senator doing meeting with the Hells Angels? She ran a background check. Malone had been pushing legislation to expand law enforcement surveillance powers. Bills that would make it easier to monitor financial transactions, to track movements across borders, to access encrypted communications. The kind of legislation that would be devastating to organized crime. Unless you were the one writing the legislation. Building in back doors. Creating loopholes. Ensuring that the very tools meant to catch criminals could be used to protect them. Sarah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop investigating. The voice was digitally distorted. Marcus Chin learned too much. You don't want to end up like him. Who is this? Someone who knows you have a daughter. Emily. Age 7. Attends Redwood Elementary. Gets picked up by your mother every Tuesday and Thursday. Sarah's heart stopped. If you touch, we won't. As long as you forget everything Marcus told you. Forget the financial records. Forget the senator. Forget the Oakland chapter. Walk away, Detective Rodriguez. While you still can. The line went dead. Sarah sat frozen. They knew about Emily. They'd been watching her. Following her family. The threat was real. She started the car. Drove straight to her mother's house. Grabbed Emily from the backyard where she was playing. Her mother protested, confused, but Sarah didn't explain. Just buckled Emily into the car seat and drove. 3 hours later, they arrived at her ex-husband's house in Sacramento. Tom answered the door, took one look at Sarah's face, and ushered them inside without questions. I need you to keep Emily for a while. Don't take her to school. Don't follow your normal routine. Just keep her safe. Sarah, what's going on? I can't tell you. The less you know, the safer you are. I'll call when I can. She kissed Emily goodbye, holding her daughter close for a moment longer than usual. Then she drove back to Oakland. Back to her apartment. Back to the investigation that was going to get her killed. Because if she stopped now, if she let them intimidate her into silence, then Marcus had died for nothing. And the Hells Angels would continue operating with impunity, their tentacles reaching into every level of government and law enforcement. Sarah opened Marcus's files again. Started reading from the beginning. Looking for what she'd missed. The piece of evidence that would explain everything. And that's when she found it. Buried in page 17. A single transaction that didn't fit the pattern. A payment from one of the offshore accounts to a medical research facility in Switzerland. $15 million. For what, the records didn't say. But Marcus had circled the payment in red ink. And written in the margin, This is what they're really hiding. Getting to Switzerland wasn't easy. Sarah couldn't use her credit cards. Too easy to track. She couldn't fly commercial. Facial recognition at airports. She couldn't tell anyone where she was going. The threat against Emily was still fresh in her mind. She withdrew $8,000 in cash from her savings. Drove to San Francisco. Paid cash for a bus ticket to Vancouver. Crossed into Canada using her passport, a risk, but unavoidable. From Vancouver, she bought a ticket to London under a fake name, using a passport she'd confiscated from a counterfeiting ring 3 years ago and never turned in. She'd kept it for emergencies. This qualified. 48 hours after leaving Oakland, Sarah stood outside the Rothberg Institute for Genetic Medicine in Basel, Switzerland. The building was sleek, modern, all glass and steel reflecting the gray Swiss sky. She'd done her research on the flight. The Rothberg Institute specialized in cutting-edge genetic research, gene therapy, personalized medicine, the kind of science that promised to cure cancer and extend human lifespans. But they also did classified work, government contracts, defense applications, the kind of research that never appeared in medical journals. Sarah walked through the front doors, hoping the direct approach would work. Sometimes confidence was the best disguise. "I'm Detective Rodriguez, Oakland Police Department," she said to the receptionist, flashing her badge quickly. "I'm investigating a financial transaction involving your facility. I need to speak with your director." The receptionist made a phone call. Spoke in rapid German. Hung up. "Dr. Kessler will see you. 4th floor, office 402. Too easy, Sarah thought. But she took the elevator up anyway. Dr. Heinrich Kessler was in his 60s, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He stood when Sarah entered, extending a hand. "Detective Rodriguez. I've been expecting you." Sarah's stomach dropped. "You have? Of course. You're investigating the Chen matter, yes? Poor man. Such a tragedy. You knew Marcus Chen? He came here 6 weeks ago. Asked the same questions you're about to ask. About the payment from the offshore account. About what we're really doing here." Dr. Kessler smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Please, sit." Sarah remained standing. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That the Rothberg Institute is conducting groundbreaking research into genetic markers associated with aggressive behavior, risk-taking, and trauma response. We're particularly interested in populations with high exposure to violence. War veterans. Gang members. People whose neurobiology has been altered by extreme experiences. And the Hells Angels are funding this research because they're the perfect study population. Generational exposure to violence. Strong cultural identity. Isolated community structures. And most importantly, willing participants. Sarah felt like she'd been punched. "You're experimenting on them?" "We're studying them. With their consent." In exchange for rather generous compensation, hundreds of Hells Angels members across multiple continents have provided DNA samples, undergone brain scans, participated in psychological evaluations. The data is extraordinary. But why? What's the end goal? Dr. Kessler's smile widened. To understand what makes someone capable of extreme violence. And more importantly, to replicate it. To create it. To control it. The room seemed to tilt. "You're trying to weaponize human aggression. We're trying to optimize it. Imagine soldiers who feel no fear. Police officers with perfect threat assessment. Private security forces with enhanced protective instincts. The applications are limitless. This is insane. Illegal. Unethical. It's the future, detective. And the Hells Angels aren't just funding it. They're profiting from it. They've secured exclusive licensing rights to certain applications of our research. Military contracts in countries that don't ask uncomfortable questions. Private security firms that operate in gray zones. It's extraordinarily lucrative." Sarah backed toward the door. "I'm reporting this. To Interpol. To the UN. To whom, exactly? The organization funded by governments that are already our clients? The agencies staffed by people we've already identified as having the genetic markers we're interested in? Detective Rodriguez, you're not understanding the scope of what we've built here. Sarah's hand found the doorknob. Marcus tried to expose you. That's why he disappeared. Marcus Chin died because he couldn't accept that some things are inevitable. Human evolution doesn't stop simply because we develop moral qualms. We're creating the next generation of humanity. The Hell's Angels understood that. They saw the opportunity and seized it. They're criminals. They're pioneers. And you're standing in the way of progress. Sarah pulled out her phone, hitting record. Say that again. I want everything documented. Dr. Kessler's expression never changed. Your phone isn't recording anything, detective. The building has signal jammers. Electromagnetic interference. Standard security protocol. She looked at her screen. No signal. The recording had stopped. You can't stop this, Dr. Kessler said softly. It's already happening. In military bases across Europe. In police academies in Asia. In private security firms operating in Africa and South America. The research is being applied. The subjects are being trained. The future is being built. Sarah ran. Sarah made it out of the building, into the Basel streets, her heart hammering against her ribs. She needed to get this information out. Needed to find someone who would listen. Someone who wasn't already compromised. But who? She found an internet cafe, paid cash, created a burner email account. Started typing everything she'd learned. The financial records. The genetic research. Dr. Kessler's admission. She'd send it to every journalist, every watchdog organization, every government oversight committee she could think of. She hit send on the first email. The screen flickered. Then went black. Every computer in the cafe shut down simultaneously. Sarah looked around. The other patrons were staring at their screens in confusion. The owner was frantically checking the circuit breakers. It wasn't a power outage. It was targeted. She grabbed her bag and ran again. This time to the train station. She bought a ticket to Paris. Cash, again. Boarded the train. Sat in a corner seat, watching every passenger who entered her car. Somewhere between Basel and Strasbourg, her phone buzzed. She'd turned it off, removed the battery. But somehow, it buzzed anyway. She looked at the screen. A text message from an unknown number. You can't run from technology you don't understand, detective. We're everywhere. In every system. Every network. Every device. Stop running. Come back. We can offer you something better than fear. Sarah smashed the phone under her heel. Threw the pieces out the train window. But the damage was done. They knew where she was. They'd tracked her across international borders, through her phone, through her digital footprint. She was leaving traces everywhere. In Paris, Sarah abandoned all electronics. She bought new clothes from a thrift store. Cut her hair short in a hostel bathroom. Changed her appearance as much as she could without being obvious. She needed allies. People who could help expose what she'd learned. But everyone she could think of felt compromised. Every law enforcement agency. Every government institution. Every investigative body. If the Hells Angels had really infiltrated everything, if they really had the resources and technology Dr. Kessler described, then there was nowhere safe. She spent 3 days in Paris, sleeping in different hostels, never staying in one place longer than a night. She watched the news obsessively, waiting for any mention of Marcus Chen, of the Rothberg Institute, of genetic research scandals. Nothing. It was like the story didn't exist. Like she'd imagined the whole thing. On the 4th day, she saw him. A man in a leather jacket with a familiar patch on the back. Hells Angels. Oakland chapter. Standing across the street from the hostel, watching the entrance. They'd found her again. Sarah climbed out the bathroom window, dropped into the alley behind the building, and ran. She didn't know where she was going. Just away. Always away. She made it to Brussels. Then Amsterdam. Then Hamburg. Moving every 2 days. Changing her route. Trying to stay unpredictable. But they were always one step ahead. In every city, she'd spot them. The leather jackets. The watching eyes. The surveillance. In Hamburg, exhausted and desperate, Sarah made a mistake. She tried to contact her daughter. Used a payphone, called her ex-husband's number, just to hear Emily's voice. "Mommy." Emily's voice was small, scared. "When are you coming home?" "Soon, baby." "I promise." "Is Daddy there?" "He's talking to the police. They came to the house. They're looking for you." Sarah's blood ran cold. What police? What did they look like? They had badges. And motorcycles outside. Daddy let them in. Oh God. They'd gone to her family. Used official credentials. Infiltrated her personal life. "Emily, listen to me. I need you to be brave. Tell Daddy I called. Tell him to take you somewhere safe. Don't tell the police anything. Can you do that?" "Mommy, I'm scared." "I know, baby. Me too. But I'm going to fix this. I promise." She hung up before the call could be traced. But she knew it was already too late. They'd know she'd contacted Emily. They'd tighten the net. Sarah walked through Hamburg's rain-soaked streets, trying to think. She needed leverage. Something that would force the truth into the open. Something they couldn't suppress or erase. And then she remembered. Marcus had sent the files to his sister. But Amy was just one person. What if there were others? What if Marcus had created backup copies, insurance policies, dead man switches? Sarah found another internet cafe. Created another burner email. Sent a message to Amy Chen's last known address. "Did Marcus give you anything else? Any other copies? Any other contacts?" She waited. 30 minutes. An hour. 2 hours. Finally, a response. "Check storage unit 247, Oakland Self-Storage on Broadway. Combination is his badge number." Sarah stared at the message. Oakland. She'd have to go back. Back to where this all started. Back to the heart of Hell's Angels territory. It was suicide. But it was also the only option left. She booked a flight back to the United States. LAX at midnight. Sarah cleared customs using her real passport. There was no point in hiding anymore. They knew she was coming back. Let them watch. She rented a car under a fake name, paid cash, drove north through the night. By dawn, she was crossing the Bay Bridge into Oakland, the city skyline emerging from the fog like a threat. Everything looked normal. Morning commuters. Coffee shops opening. Street sweepers making their rounds. As if the world she'd discovered didn't exist. As if it was all some paranoid delusion. But Sarah knew better. She drove past the Hells Angels clubhouse. 4 motorcycles parked outside. Lights on in the windows. Business as usual. The storage facility was in a rough part of town. Chain-link fence, security cameras, units painted in peeling gray paint. Sarah found Unit 247, 3rd row from the back. Marcus's badge number, 17492. She spun the combination lock. It clicked open. Inside the unit, stacked boxes, file folders, hard drives, USB drives. Marcus had been thorough. He'd documented everything. Years of investigation, all stored in this 10 by 10 concrete room. Sarah started loading boxes into the car. She'd take everything. Find somewhere to review it all. Build an airtight case that couldn't be ignored or suppressed. She was on her 4th box when she heard the motorcycles. The sound echoed through the storage facility. Growing louder. Multiple engines. Coming closer. Sarah dropped the box. Ran to her car. Started the engine just as 6 Hells Angels motorcycles roared around the corner, blocking the exit. She threw the car in reverse. Backed up hard. But more motorcycles appeared behind her, boxing her in completely. 12 bikers. All wearing the Death's Head patch. All climbing off their bikes. All walking toward her with the casual confidence of men who knew she had nowhere to run. Sarah locked the doors. Pulled out her service weapon. She was outnumbered, trapped, and about to die in an Oakland storage facility over crimes most people would never believe existed. The leader, a massive man with a gray beard and scarred hands, tapped on her window. Not threatening. Almost gentle. "Detective Rodriguez," he said, his voice muffled by the glass. "We need to talk. Stay back. I'm armed." "We know. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help." Sarah laughed, a sound on the edge of hysteria. "Help? You've been hunting me across 2 continents." The biker shook his head. "That wasn't us. That was them. The ones who really run things. We've been trying to reach you. To warn you. To give you the truth." "What truth?" "The truth about what happened to Marcus Chin. About what's really going on. About who's really in control." Sarah kept the gun pointed at him. "Talk from there." The biker sighed. Marcus was right about the financial networks. Right about the infiltration of law enforcement and government. Right about the genetic research. But he got one thing wrong. "What?" "He thought the Hells Angels were running it. We're not. We never were. We're victims too." His name was Jack Reaper Morrison. 40 years with the Hells Angels Oakland chapter. Former vice president. Now, apparently, a whistleblower. They sat in the storage unit, Sarah with her back against the wall, gun still in her hand. Reaper sat on a box, his crew standing guard outside. "Start from the beginning," Sarah said. 2015, Reaper began. "We noticed money appearing in club accounts. Significant amounts. Nobody knew where it came from. At first, we thought it was revenue from our legitimate businesses. The motorcycle shops, the bars, the security companies. But the amounts didn't match. We were receiving 10 times what we were earning." "And you just accepted it?" "We tried to trace it. Hired forensic accountants. Private investigators. Everyone hit dead ends. The money came from shell corporations that dissolved the moment anyone looked too closely. It was like chasing ghosts." "So what happened?" 2016. "We're contacted by this organization. No name. No faces. Just representatives in expensive suits. They explain that our financial network, built over decades of running a criminal enterprise, is useful to them. They're using it to move money around the world. And in exchange, we get a cut. 20% of every transaction." "And you said yes?" Reaper's jaw tightened. "They didn't give us a choice. They showed us what they knew about our operations. Every crime we'd committed for 50 years. Every body we'd buried. Every rival we'd eliminated. Complete documentation. Photos. Recordings. They could have dismantled the entire organization in a week." "Blackmail." "Exactly. So we became their front. Their money moved through our accounts. And we got rich. Richer than we'd ever been. Some guys bought houses. Paid off debts. Invested in legitimate businesses. It seemed like a good deal. Until they started asking for more. Access to our DNA. Participation in medical studies. Detailed psychological evaluations. They sold it as health benefits. Free health care for club members. Cutting-edge treatment for PTSD. A lot of our guys are veterans. They've got issues. So they signed up." Sarah felt sick. They were gathering data for the genetic research. "We didn't know that then. We thought we were getting medical help. But after Marcus Chen started investigating, some of us started asking questions. And that's when the threats began." What kind of threats? Reaper pulled out his phone. Showed Sarah a photo. A young woman, early 20s, smiling at the camera. My daughter, Rachel. She's a nurse in Portland. 2 months ago, she was assaulted. Beaten so badly she was in a coma for 3 weeks. The police never found who did it. But I got a message the day before she woke up. It said, "Stop asking questions about the research, or next time she doesn't wake up." Sarah stared at the photo. At Rachel Morrison's bruised face. At the tubes and wires keeping her alive. They went after your family. They've gone after 12 families in the last 6 months. Members who got too curious. Who started talking about walking away. Suddenly their wives have car accidents. Their kids get arrested on drug charges. Their businesses burn down. The message is clear: we're owned. And if we try to leave, everyone we love pays the price. So why are you telling me this? Why risk it? Reaper met her eyes. Because Marcus Chen died trying to expose them. Because you've got enough evidence to blow this wide open. And because... He paused, struggling with the words. Because we might be criminals, but we're not monsters. What they're doing, the genetic experiments, the mind control research, the infiltration of governments, it's bigger than anything we ever imagined. And we want out. Sarah lowered her gun. Who are they? Really? We don't know. We've tried to find out. But they're buried under so many layers of corporations and shell companies and proxies that it's impossible. All we know is they have unlimited resources. Access to cutting-edge technology. Connections in every government agency on the planet. And they're building something. Something that requires genetic data from people with specific psychological profiles. The Rothberg Institute. That's just one facility. They've got labs in 12 countries. All doing variations of the same research. They're not just studying aggression and violence. They're engineering it. Creating genetic profiles that can be replicated. Enhanced. Weaponized. Sarah's mind raced. Why bikers? Why specifically target the Hells Angels? Think about it. We're violent, but disciplined. Aggressive, but loyal. We thrive in chaotic situations. We can function outside normal social structures. And we've been doing it for generations. Our culture creates the exact psychological profile they're looking for. They're building an army. Worse. They're building the template for an army. They're figuring out how to create that psychological profile artificially. Through genetic modification. Through behavioral conditioning. Through pharmaceutical intervention. And once they perfect the formula, they can apply it to anyone. Soldiers. Police. Corporate security forces. Private militaries. Sarah stood up, pacing the small storage unit. We need to go public. Right now. Take everything in this room to the media. To international courts. They own the media. They own the courts. They own everything that matters. Reaper shook his head. We've tried. 3 months ago, a member from our Amsterdam chapter got evidence to a journalist at Der Spiegel. The journalist died in a car accident before the story published. 2 months ago, one of our lawyers filed a complaint with the International Criminal Court. The complaint disappeared from their system overnight. Last month, we sent encrypted files to WikiLeaks. They never acknowledged receiving anything. So what do? We use the one thing they can't control. The one institution they haven't fully infiltrated yet. What? Reaper smiled grimly. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. We've got chapters in 53 countries. Thousands of members. A communication network they can't fully monitor. And we're really, really good at violence. Sarah stared at him. You want to start a war. We want to expose them. Violently if necessary. We can't use conventional methods because they control those systems. But we can hit them where they're vulnerable. Their research facilities. Their financial centers. Their personnel. We make enough noise, cause enough chaos, force enough attention, and eventually someone who can't be bought or threatened will investigate. That's insane. It's our only option. And you're going to help us. Sarah spent the next 3 days in a Hells Angels safe house in Oakland. A converted warehouse in the industrial district, reinforced with steel doors and surveillance cameras. It was surreal. She was a cop. They were criminals. But they were working together to expose something far worse than anything either of them had done. Reaper brought in representatives from other chapters. San Francisco, Seattle, Phoenix, Toronto, London, Berlin, Copenhagen, Brisbane. 12 men and 2 women, all wearing the Death's Head patch, all with stories about threatened families and disappeared members. They laid out everything they knew on a massive table. Financial records, research documents, surveillance photos, testimonials from members who'd participated in the genetic studies. Sarah contributed Marcus's files, the 23 pages he'd sent his sister, plus everything else from the storage unit. Combined, it was damning. Incontrovertible proof of a vast conspiracy. But proof meant nothing if they couldn't get it to someone who mattered. We need a new strategy, Sarah said, studying the documents. Going to the media didn't work. Going to law enforcement didn't work. Going to international organizations didn't work. We need someone outside the system. Someone they can't touch. Like who? The question came from the Berlin representative, a woman named Petra with a scar running down her left cheek. Sarah thought for a moment. Then it hit her. Like the public. All of them. At once. So overwhelmingly that it can't be suppressed or ignored. How? We leak everything. Simultaneously. To every platform. Every social media site. Every news aggregate. Every forum and message board and conspiracy theory website on the internet. We flood the zone with so much information that it becomes impossible to contain. Reaper frowned. They'll just say it's fake. Deep fakes. Conspiracy theories. Disinformation. Probably. But some of it will stick. Enough people will start asking questions. Investigating. Connecting dots. And once the story gets big enough, legitimate journalists will have to cover it. Politicians will have to respond to it. It becomes too big to ignore. The Toronto representative, a man named Dutch, shook his head. That's basically throwing shit at the wall and hoping some of it sticks. You have a better idea? Silence. Okay, Dutch said finally. Let's say we do this. Mass leak. Information bomb. What stops them from just tracking down everyone who downloads the files and eliminating them? They've got the technology. They've got the resources. We protect the sources, Sarah said. We encrypt everything. Use blockchain technology to distribute the files. Make it impossible to trace back to us. And we do it all at once. Same time. Same day. Coordinated across time zones. They can't stop everyone at once. Petra nodded slowly. It could work. If we're fast enough. If we're thorough enough. If we don't fuck it up. There's one problem, Reaper said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. We're assuming they don't know we're planning this. That we've got time to prepare. But what if they're already watching? What if this safe house is compromised? What if they're listening right now? The room went silent. Everyone looked at each other, suddenly paranoid. Sarah felt the weight of the possibility. They'd been so focused on planning that they hadn't considered the obvious, that the enemy had already anticipated their moves. Then we move fast, she said. We start tonight. We distribute the files tonight. We go public tonight. Before they can stop us. That's suicide, Dutch said. We need more time to. We don't have more time. Every minute we wait is another minute they have to prepare. To track us. To eliminate us. We go now or we don't go at all. Reaper looked around the room. At his fellow club members. At Sarah. at the mountains of evidence covering the table. "She's right," he said finally. "We've been playing defense since this started. Time to go on offense. Dutch, contact every chapter. Tell them to stand by for the signal. Petra, get your tech people ready to start uploading. Sarah, you coordinate the distribution channels. I'll handle security." They split up, each person taking assignments, moving with the sudden urgency of people who knew they were running out of time. Sarah set up at a computer terminal, creating accounts on hundreds of platforms simultaneously. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, 4chan. Every social media site, every forum, every place where information could be shared and amplified. She uploaded the first batch of files. Financial records showing the shell corporations, the offshore accounts, the synchronized transactions. Then the second batch. Photos from the Rothberg Institute, Dr. Kessler's admission, the genetic research protocols. Then the third. Testimonials from Hell's Angels members who'd participated in the studies, who'd had their DNA collected, who'd been threatened when they asked questions. Each upload was encrypted. Each file was time-stamped. Each piece of evidence was linked to every other piece, creating a web of information that couldn't be easily dismantled. At 11:47 p.m. Pacific Time, Sarah hit the final upload button. 3,000 documents, 500 photos, 40 hours of audio recordings, all released simultaneously across 200 platforms. The Internet exploded.